15 minutes away. Yeah.
Well, who was somebody? Why didn't you have these? 20 minutes from here to everything else.
Oh.
20 minutes to show.
Well, no, like the city, I think. Oh, we can do it. It's just, it's not going to enjoy it. And if you're asking, let's have it. Your mother died. I'm 7 months older, right? I'm May 1st. My sister's older. Although my brother was young. No. What did you say?
Extemporaneous is intended. Chip and I would like to welcome everyone to our celebration of the first 80 years of Anne Martel's life. For many of you, this is the second part of the weekend doubleheader. Thanks to Vicki and Jeff, who we hope to see at some point, for getting them all here. And I appreciate you all getting up this morning to accommodate my schedule because I have to be back in Milwaukee for a 2 o'clock matinee. Yesterday, people were remarking on how organized Vicki is and what an incredible job of event planning she did. This isn't going to be like that. We're eating, so people are going to talk. We'll eat some more, and we'll just be together. And we hope, it seems like most people have had a chance to look at the photo displays on the computers and the poster boards, and the world map showing many of the places that my mom has visited and lived. And feel free to take your biographical timelines. Louder? Okay. Sorry.
You have to tip the mic a little.
Tip it up.
I'll turn that off.
Oh, there's music on?
The music.
Should I start over?
I think it's mostly talking more directly into it.
Okay.
No, it's just the music.
I think tip it down a little.
Oh, I see. It's the computer music.
Yeah.
Just close it. Is it out?
We're here in the lobby.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll just try and talk louder. Is this okay?
Yeah, we'll talk straight into it.
Okay. This is a remarkable family that we have. Look at all of us. Anne's parents, my grandparents, Malka and Belville, had 4 children, and 3 of them are here. And we miss Yetta and know that she would have been here. I'm grateful that he was here. They had 10 grandchildren, and all of them are here. It's a 10-cousin event. We don't get those that often, but many of their nieces and grandnieces and nephews are here, and spouses. And Mickey is here, representing the many friends that she has in Champaign-Urbana. You all know my mother pretty well. No one will be surprised to hear that she is zealous about politics, an active member of her synagogue, addicted to the news in the form of newspapers, television, and radios, that she loves to folk dance and walk in the woods and see theater and dance and movies, that she is not shy about expressing her opinion, that she enjoys eating a wide variety of foods as long as they're not spicy, and that she has successfully traveled all over the world but had to stop 3 times and ask for directions to get to this hotel. Things that have had an influence on me. She took me to the theater. She took me on trips. She made sure I knew my extended family. She taught frugality by example. She gave me unconditional support for whatever I wanted to do, something I took for granted in a parent until I learned that some of my friends were not so lucky. She demonstrated that you can recover and thrive after your life has been turned upside down, and that the world offers too many things to do and not enough time to do everything, but she's trying. As for political influence, I'm going to read from a letter that my grandfather wrote in 1960. This was my other grandfather, not Uncle Galvo, my other grandfather. I was amazed at Judy's statement that all the kids in the school are her friends except one. Why isn't he your friend, I asked. He's a Republican, he's for Nixon. Don't you teach your 4-year-olds not to discuss religion or politics in the classroom?
This is new to
There is at least one way in which I influenced her. One day as a child, I watched her struggling to take off her girdle, and I asked her why she wore it. She couldn't think of a good answer, so she stopped wearing it. She came to our house on Thursday to visit and see my play, and she said she was sorry that preparing for this party was taking so much time. But time spent looking through photos, learning about family history, exchanging email with Chip 2 or 3 times a day, corresponding with other family members is time well spent. And after working on the timeline, Hannah observed that she spent the first half of her life moving, and when she stopped moving, she started traveling. Also just like to say Chip and Jan and Hannah contributed, and we all worked together to make this, and we're very happy that
So I'm just going to speak very briefly now again to welcome you all, and also to comment that I think that it's good to have occasions to honor people while they're still around to appreciate it. And in particular, that there are too few occasions for children to honor their parents when we owe a great debt. And that's particularly the case here, where we have a mother who's really done a wonderful job for us. And at this time, though, what I'd mostly like to do is to invite some others up to talk about their experiences with her. And I think we have a few. As Judy commented, we haven't choreographed this quite the same way. So.
Can I be the first one?
No, you're the last.
You're supposed to be the last.
See, it's her party and she can't do what she wants.
They tell me what to do.
Yes, Dorothy, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mine isn't humorous like Judy's or what you've written, right? But, can you hear me? Yeah, sure, right. Ann and I are really the same age. I'm 7 months older than Ann. So we've really grown up together, and our life has intersected many times in many ways. And you can't remember this, but the first time that I saw you was when my parents brought your family from Montreal. You were 4 years old. My only recollection is seeing millions of kids jumping on beds, but I remember that, kids jumping on beds. But we went to different schools. Actually, your family first lived on 18th, we used it Ridgeway or Hamlin, right, on the first floor, right. We used to go there. Our parents were very close. It was my mother and Ann's father, her sister and brother. And we did a lot of things together. The family would occasionally in summer rent a cottage in New Buffalo, right? And we would all go there, and some of our cottages even had outdoor toilets. Remember that too?
Well, don't forget. Your father was the only one that had a car.
Right. Oh, that's right. I forgot that. My father was the one who had the car. And you won't believe this. We used to get in there, what, 12, 13 people. We used to take out the seats. God forbid that my parents should do something not including, right, the schlare. So we used to take out the back seats and pile the clothes, right, on the seats. And God forbid that we shouldn't go to the beach, take every minute. So on the way back, the bathing suits were wet. So we used to hang them on the handles of the outside of the doors. Right. But we had a lot of great times, the hammock, etc., etc. And during college, we were at different schools, right? But we, while we were growing up in high school, we had mutual friends. We were active in Habonim, you and I, and Hebrew High School, right? And then over the years, you've traveled and moved away, but the last few years, we have visited. You've traveled over the world, and you have traveling companions from the world, and you go with your sister and your brother Irv on cruises. But Herman and I are your Midwest, Illinois travel companions, right? We've gone with you to Springfield twice, and last September we went to see the Lincoln Library. By the way, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's well worth a visit. And Herman and I and our families would just like to wish you many healthy, good years, and hopefully more in good health and hopefully in peace.
Thank you.
Sound person, right?
Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful. Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say. Okay. I'm going to get away from the sentiment because I'm so close to tears. I have a funny story about Anne. I have to do something to get away from crying all the time. We went to the movies when I was 65 and she was much younger, 8 years younger, and we could now get in for a senior ticket. But this woman has so much integrity and is so honest. When I said 2 senior tickets, she says, I'm not 65. She wouldn't let us get her a senior ticket. And that's typical of the kind of integrity and honesty and just beautiful character of this woman. I have wonderful memories, but I'm sorry, I can't seem to talk without crying. So it's wonderful. I'm the matriarch, but I should have more. I should be in more control, but I'm sorry. But it's a lovely occasion, and I love everybody in here, and I think we're so lucky to have each other. Thank you.
Well, I don't have any family stories to tell because I'm married into this family, but 50 years. How much are going to the beach? Being in the Midwest, not too far from Anne's, our house was kind of the way station to either Milwaukee or to the airport for one of her many trips. And knowing her reputation, we had a routine. Before we let her leave the house, we had to check the bedroom where she stayed to see what she's left behind.
She always left something.
So at one time, something else I have to do now, when she comes to our house, I have to check which purse she's using. Because we both have sports sacks, and some of them are the same color. And she once picked up my black bag, took it to Milwaukee for the weekend, and I couldn't drive until she came back, so we can switch purses. So now, whenever she comes, I just hide my purse. I think I recall once having to, she left airline tickets at our house. Somehow we got them to her so she could take her flight. It's a lot of fun. We just have to check that room before she goes. But we love having her stay, and it's always fun. And we just think you're terrific.
There are so many things to remember about Annie when she was growing up, and I can't get them all right in order. And she doesn't remember a lot of these things, so she thinks we make them up. Like she'd ride the streetcar, and we think she was going someplace, but she'd ride around for hours. And we didn't worry because then eventually she'd come home. And she did. And this is incredible. But she was very forgetful, and I don't know if she still is or not. But trying to remember, but I can't. My mind is not that functional anymore. So, but she was really a joy as a child because she was so full of mischief and different than other children that it was always a happy time because you never knew what to expect, and it was always the unexpected. So it worked out very well, and everybody, she was really the baby of the family, and so everybody looked after her to a certain extent, and we enjoyed her for forever. So we'll let it go with that. It was nice having you around.
I plan to stay.
Annie, it's a joy and a pleasure. When Judy came by and asked whether I had anything to say, I couldn't resist the temptation to say, I wanted to come up and speak to you. It is such a privilege and zchus to be here with you, for all of us to survive these years and to be here to enjoy and to see you looking as radiant and as lovely and as vibrant and feisty and adventuresome as you are. You have aged beautifully. Your zest for living is at a peak. It's never, you just don't seem to run out of energy. You're always thinking when you take, one trip what the next one is going to be. And your intellectual interests, your being a news junkie, your interest in politics, all these things that Judy said are so true because I've been there to witness when you've spoken out in the face of power for convictions that you hold, and it's wonderful. Then everybody's talked about the things. When Dorothy mentioned these trips that we used to take to the beach, we were in New Buffalo once, and there were actually 14 people in the car. I know there were no safety laws at the time, but no car seats. But it's a tribute to the times that my parents, who lived on a 3rd floor, 2-bedroom apartment, and there were 5 of us, because you were 4, and my brother Israel Ovashon was younger. And he was sleeping in a hallway. He was in a crib in the hallway, and accommodated a family of 6 people. And there was no question that they were going to come, they were going to stay as long as it was necessary until you got settled. And these trips to the beach and the trip to New Buffalo, my mother, Ovashon, would not think of going anywhere if Uncle Valville and Tante Malka's family were not able to participate and also be part of it. So here we were, traveling down the highway, and New Buffalo is, at those days it must have been a 3-hour trip. Because remember, when we got to Jeffrey Manor, to 95th and Jeffrey, we were halfway to New Buffalo, and then a lot of us ended up living on the far southeast side of Chicago. And with the bathing suits flying in the wind, and even in those days, even without car seats, that was a little unusual. The Okies